Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the regular meeting of the El Centro City Council. We will have roll call, please.
Mayor Sanders.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Sullivan.
Here.
Councilmember Villegas Walker.
Here.
Councilmember Silva.
Here.
Councilmember Jackson.
Here.
We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Silva with an invocation by Councilmember Walker. Please stand with me, please.
Please join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, thank you that we could be here today, gathered to do what's best for our community. Help us to be mindful of the responsibility that it rests upon our shoulders. Help us to live every day with a spirit of gratitude for all that we have. In these things we pray in thy precious name. Amen.
Amen. We'll hear our city attorney report out on our closed session, which was held today from 11:30 to about 1:14. Ms. Becker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On a motion by Councilmember Villegas Walker, seconded by Councilmember Silva, the City Council met in closed session at 11:32 a.m. pursuant to the closed session statement posted with the agenda. All council members were present. A report was given to council on 3 anticipated litigation items. There is no action to report, but direction was given to staff. With regard to the hospital claims and suits that were listed on the closed session statement, reports were given by Andrea Hammond, Compliance Officer for El Centro Regional Medical Center, and the City Attorney for information only with no action to report. With regard to the case of Ojeda versus City of El Centro, United States District Court case number 12CV0051JMPOR, a report was given to the council and direction was given to staff. Council will be moving back into closed session after the open session meeting has concluded, so the City Attorney will be able to provide a supplemental report on one of the 3 anticipated litigation items. Closed session concluded at 1:14 p.m., and that concludes my report.
Thank you. This is a public meeting, and if there is an item on the agenda on which you wish to be heard, please complete a speaker slip and submit to the city clerk prior to the start of the meeting. When the item is announced and your name is called by the mayor, please come forward to the microphone, address yourself to the council, stating your name and address for the record. And unless the mayor extends the time, there is a 3-minute time limit for each public presentation. If you wish to address the council on any subject matter within the council's jurisdiction, that is not listed on the agenda, you may do so during the public comment portion of the agenda. I have no presentations at this time, nor any announcements, but we do have a scheduled public comments. We'll hear from monthly report from the El Centro Chamber.
I'm in trouble already. Thank you, Mayor Sanders. The young professionals had continuing with their leadership series, The Ethics of Leadership, on February 24th. The Film Commission did a kind of a premiere for the movie, The Act of Valor, which I'm sure all of you know, a lot of it was filmed here in the Valley, so that was pretty exciting. And you've got to hand it to Charlotte Teeters. She had that premiere on Thursday night, I think it was, and got married on Saturday. So
Oh my goodness.
She's just really a hard worker, you know. We're just lucky to have her down here. Last month, of course, the monthly mixer was held over at the hospital, and they did a fabulous job of continuing the Mardi Gras theme, and even with the weather, I think it was a beautiful mixer. So thank you for that. We had one of our chamber breakfasts. We had Andy Horn come talk about renewable energy projects in the Valley, and as I said before, you know, Andy, he kind of always just tells it like it is, so it's always interesting to hear him talk. You feel like you learn something new every time you hear him talk. So, and it was very well attended over at SDG&E. Again, they're so gracious to host us for so many things. The chamber had a seminar on how to start your own business on eBay in cooperation with IVC, so that was kind of interesting. And just want to congratulate you guys, of course, on another successful Mardi Gras event, and I think you had the Tour de Manure, of course, so thank you for continuing all those great events. We know how much commerce that brings to all of our businesses and just adds to the quality of our life, of course. At last time I was here, we had just had the air show, but I did want to report that our committee had a chance to meet again, and we really did do a good job. It was pretty much almost a sold-out event, so we can hope that that continues to be a signature event for us and that we can continue to expand on it and make it even bigger and better. Upcoming events, we, along with the Leadership Development Series, the Young Professionals on March 16th the seminar is Developing Your Inner Leader, again held at SDG&E. And I'm sure you guys know the Renewable Energy Summit is coming up, and that's with IBE DC on March 13th out at the Barberworth Country Club. Our next mixer will be March 15th, and that's at Imperial Valley Family Medical Group and here in El Centro. And then the Young Professionals Leadership Awards Dinner will be Thursday, April 16th, and that's going to be at the Barcelona Events Center again. That's from 5:30 to 8:30, so we hope you all can make that. And wish you luck on your Imagine Awards coming up. It's always nice that you have that. We did set a date already for our Chamber Annual Dinner, and that is June 21st, and we will go ahead and have that again at the old Eucalyptus Schoolhouse. So lots of great events going on. Busy time here in the Valley. Of course, the fair is going on. Unfortunately, we had to cancel it today because of the wind, but we're just concerned for everybody's safety. But it's been a successful event. Of course, we've got the air show going on this weekend, so lots to do, and we just love those kind of events because it brings people into our valley to see what a great valley this is and creates more commerce, of course. So here's to good business. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now ready for our consent agenda. Consent agenda items are approved by one motion. Council members or members of the public may pull consent items to be considered separately at a time determined by the mayor. Does anyone wish to pull any item from the consent?
I'd like to pull 2, 3, and 5, please.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion for item 4.
So moved.
It's been moved by Jackson, second by Walker. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Ms. Walker for 2, 3, and 4.
Right. Very quickly, with regard to item number 2, the minutes, I don't know if this is protocol, City Clerk, but the reason for my absence from the closed session was because I had previously abstained on that item. But the other thing under scheduled public comments, I seem to recall that after Mr. McManus made his presentation with regard to the local bid preference, that there was a recommendation that that be referred to the Charter City Task Force for consideration. So I'm wondering if the minutes could be amended or revised. And with that, I'd move for approval.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved by Walker, second by Jackson, that the minutes will be corrected to include those items as identified. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And so the motion, any opposition? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Ms. Walker, number 3.
Item number 3, I presented 3 questions to staff with regard to this agenda item, and I understand that Ms. Piedra is ready to address those. The 3 questions that I had with regard to this item, number 1 is how many people are being assisted annually by the Inland Fair Housing Group? How does the City of El Centro monitor the service, the quality of service being provided by Inland Fair Housing? And the third question is, who makes up the balance of funding required to operate the El Centro office, or is the city the sole source of funding?
Sure, yes. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. In response, and I appreciate the opportunity to receive the questions in advance. In response to the question regarding the number of people that are assisted annually by the Inland Fair Housing Mediation Board, they range from anywhere from 100 to 250, so usually they're around that number of individuals that are serviced by the agency. Regarding the monitoring of their services, what we do is we do an internal review. Staff goes out, and we do this for any subrecipient of CDBG funds in order to make sure that the project files include the necessary information related to the clients that they're servicing, make sure that they are El Centro residents, and the income information is included, and there's obviously evidence in the file that they're providing the service that they're intending to provide. I will bring to your attention specifically with Inland Mediation Board that last year we were monitored by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And this was actually one of the agencies that they personally went out and checked their files. And they congratulated us as far as their record keeping, along with other agencies that were visited by our representative, and they maintain very good files. So that was good assurance for us that they are also complying with requirements. So we don't have any issue with that regard. Again, we monitor the subrecipients on an annual basis as well, city staff.
Ms. Piedra, just one detail there. Do they do any client surveys? Do they send out surveys or request evaluation of their services, how they were provided by the actual clients?
I don't know specifically, but I can ask that question if they
Please.
do any kind of follow-up as far as, the services and how their clients felt, but I can certainly check on that.
Thank you.
And then the final question regarding the balance of the funding for operating the El Centro office. Not only do they do fair housing and landlord-tenant services here in El Centro, but they also, they're successful in getting grants for foreclosure, counseling, and other type of loan modification services. And so they supplement their operational expenses for the El Centro office with other funding sources. So that's how they cover the other costs.
Great, thank you.
Okay. All minds clear?
Just can I just make an observation? I did have some of the concerns, I guess, Ms. Walker, that you mentioned. I did also earlier spoke to Marcela in regards to this item and clarification on the items that you're discussing, because when I looked at the proposal and the scope of activities that they do, somehow I also got the sense, I think like you, that are we really getting our money's worth for the scope in terms of the actual people that they get to and provide services to. As Ms. Piedra indicated to me, this is a mandated component that we have to do. I was satisfied with the response that, I guess the last time they were reviewed, they passed with flying colors. But I think I had the same concerns, issues that you raised.
Okay. Any additional questions?
There's no additional questions. I'd move for approval of item 3.
Okay.
Second.
Moved by Walker, second by Silva. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Ms. Walker, number 4.
With regard to item number 5,
I'm sorry, number 5. Thank you.
I'm assuming, Ms. Becker, that because this pertains to off-street improvements for the El Centro Town Center, does this impact the low-income housing as well, or is this just for the town center? Is this,
Ms. Piet?
is this just
The actual area where the improvements are going to be made start from north of where the El Centro Family Apartment Project starts. This
Okay.
is funded by EDA, which only funds projects that are in support of industrial and commercial development. So the improvements are starting from the end of the apartment site to the north of where the city limits end.
Okay. So based on that clarification of the project site, I'm assuming, Ms. Becker, that it's appropriate for me to vote on this item. I have abstained on the apartment
But this is it.
because of the funding.
Yeah, it's
but-
separate. But yeah, the funding is separate.
Okay, very good. With that clarification, I'd move for approval of item 5.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Moved by Walker, second by Silva for item number 5 on our consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. We're ready now for unfinished business, and it's a discussion and necessary action regarding the amendment of ordinance number 11-06, establishing regulations and procedures for medical cannabis dispensaries.
Thank you.
Ms.
Good
Villacana.
evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the council. As you may recall, back in June of last year, the City Council adopted an ordinance allowing for the permitting medical marijuana dispensaries within the city. The application process was opened, and right before the end of the application process, there was a court decision that basically said that cities could not issue permits to medical marijuana dispensaries. In light of that, the City Council provided us staff direction that the application process be put on hold until further information was provided regarding some pending court issues, and also to bring this back to the council at this time. So at this time, what we're doing is we're bringing it back to you. The task force that was assigned for this project met about a month ago, and we went over the issues that are currently ongoing issues, in particular a couple of court cases. So in light of that, the task force is recommending that the current ordinance be amended to provide language that says that applications will not be accepted until 120 days after the courts render a decision on the 2 pending cases that are listed in the staff report.
Does any member from the task force wish to have any comments regarding this?
Just one clarification. I wonder if the language should be that the decision is final, because even if a decision is rendered in either of these 2 cases, there could be a pretty lengthy appeal process, so the case law would remain unsettled for that period of time. So should the language be that until the decision is final, as opposed to when a decision is rendered?
We can make that change.
But again, you pick up a newspaper and every day there's another story about something that's happening in this space, and we felt, Mr. Jackson and I now sit on the task force, we felt that it was in the city's best interest to not move forward. Staff is in absolute agreement not move forward with the permitting process, since it still remains so unsettled at this point in time.
Do you have any comments, Mr. Jackson? Okay, hearing none. All right.
Just a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, Mr. Silva?
Do we have any sense on how long this may drag in the court system? Chris?
14 months.
It will be anywhere between 12 and 18 months.
This approach, I agree with the task force tonight, is that because we keep setting dates, better to set this many days after that decision is final, then we can move forward, because otherwise we'll be meeting every 6 months trying to guess the outcome, and this way also the community that's looking at this can anticipate what's going to happen.
Okay. Mr. Silva, any additional, any additional questions of staff or of any member of the committee? Okay, hearing none, what's the pleasure of the body?
Move for approval of ordinance number 12-2. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of El Centro amending Section 13-119F of Article 7, Chapter 13 of the Code of El Centro, establishing regulations and procedures for medical cannabis dispensary. Waive reading and pass as a first reading.
Moved by Walker, second by Jackson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Item number 7, discussion and any necessary action regarding the Lotus Avenue bike lane configuration and presentation, presentation of the survey results. Mr. Hagan?
Back to the first page there.
Yes, okay.
The council meeting back in September 20th, 2011, we discussed this issue, and since we've got a new council member, I thought we'd just review it. And okay, I guess this isn't going to work here. We'll try that. Okay, so briefly, the different types of bike lanes. You have a Class 1 where you actually have a separate path from the other, from the street. And like we have in along Adams Avenue, we have a Class 1 there in the city. Also, the next is Class 2, where we, on one side of the street, eliminate parking and have a separate striped pathway, and then on the other side you may have the parking and then a pathway adjacent to the parking. And then a Class 3 bikeway, which is the predominant bikeways throughout the city, are just simply signage without any striping, additional striping for the
Terry?
bicycles. Yes,
Where in Adams do we have a Class 1?
right in the park. In fact, when we do the skate park, we're going to have to eliminate it and change our bike path master plan.
It's included into the park area.
Into the park area, yes.
It
think
looks
it's near
like a
6th Street.
sidewalk. It looks like a
Oh, it goes through
makeshift-
the park?
Yes. It looks like a sidewalk almost.
So the background on this is the plans for the Phase 1 overlay project, last year's overlay project, were completed when the new bike path plan was being updated. At that time, Lotus Avenue between Ross and Main was being considered for a change to from a Class 3 to a Class 2 bike lane. Previous Lotus was a Class 3. The Class 2 pavement striping and signs were installed, and then the bike path master plan ultimately went forward with this section of roadway as a Class 3 bike lane. At that time, council chose to obtain the option of retaining the current Class 2 bike path and assess it for a time, and now we've completed a survey. This is another diagram here of the different classes, and the middle one is actually what we have out there on Lotus between Main and Ross, where you have one parking on the right side, you have the parking eliminated, and then you have a bike lane of approximately 4 feet wide, and then on the left side there in the center you have a parking area with a 4-foot bike lane adjacent to it. So this shows the section here of Lotus from Main to Ross. The upper photograph is looking south, and the lower photograph is looking north at from Ross. Here's another view looking south. And again, more photographs. Okay, the decision to eliminate the parking along the west side of the street was based on reducing the number of affected residents whose side parking adjacent to their lots or homes would be eliminated. Since most of the stretch of the west side is bordered by detention basins, fewer residents are affected by eliminating the parking along the west side of the street. The shift of the center line aligns with the center line of Lotus Avenue on the north side of Main Street, which would not have been possible if the east parking was eliminated instead. So basically what we're saying is the stretch between Lotus between Main and Ross, by shifting it to the west, the alignment works out with the other streets. For the Class 2 system that we have out there now, the pros are it's a wider field of view due to less congestion of parked vehicles during sport events at the detention facilities. It reduces the hiding places where children and pedestrians cross during the soccer games, as compared to if you had parking on both sides, you'd have pedestrians darting out between cars on both sides. And then the fully outlined bike path for children to use on their way to the elementary school and high school is better for bicyclists. The cons: elimination of off-street parking adjacent to the drainage facilities used for soccer, and pedestrians are required to cross the street when they're using the detention basins. The Class 3 system, the pros would be parking adjacent to the park, reducing the number of pedestrians crossing the street during the times when they use the detention basins, and the cons would be reduced field of view when vehicles parked on both sides of the street, and increases the hiding places, as I mentioned before, for pedestrians trying to cross the street. And it eliminates the delineated bike routes near the schools. So back in September, the decision of council was, or the direction was to perform a survey of residents in the area and report back to council the results of the survey. And the timing of this, the survey has been completed in time to include striping of Lotus. If we want to switch it back to a Class 3, we can include that in the the second Measure D bond overlay project. Go to the next presentation here. So the survey process, a total of 708 survey forms were passed out. You have the actual form in your packet. They were distributed to the North Lotus area. I have a diagram that will show that area, a map, in the next slide. All surveys were delivered by January 26, 2012. Surveys were hand-delivered and left in mailboxes and on front doors. Surveys were due back February 10th, which gives them a 2-week period. And surveys could either be dropped off or mailed to City Hall. Of the 708 surveys, we received back 58 total completed surveys. This represents an 8% return rate. This shows the area. The yellow line is Lotus, and this shows you can see the 3 retention basins and the homes on each side. This is the actual survey that you have in your packet. Basically, there's 6 questions on that survey. The 2 main questions where we've asked basically the same question 2 different ways, or where I have the 2 stars up there in the middle. It talks about, the first question is, are you in favor of the new striping and bike lane as it currently exists? And that's a yes or no answer. And then we ask it a different way. You would like to propose that the city, either A or B, leave existing bike lane in place, or B, return to the previous striping and remove the bike lane. The other 4 questions are kind of, well, we'll get into those in these pie charts here. The upper one there, it says, how often do you use the bike lanes? And 50% said never, and then we've got a distribution of another 50% made up of 3 or fewer times a week at 22%, 4 or 5 times a week at 24%, and 4% every day. The lower pie chart, do you use the bike lanes as a safe route to and from school? And we had 17% yes, 67% no, and 16% left that question blank. The next charts at the top, who in your household uses the bike lanes? 52% left it blank, 5% children, and 43% entire family. And then the next chart down at the bottom, keeping the bike lanes, keep the bike lanes. We had 12% blank. These were questions where you had a choice of 5 different answers. So it was blank, or they considered it's necessary. 28% considered it necessary. 15% said it isn't necessary. 17% said eliminates much needed residential parking. And 28% said it provides a safe route to school for students. And these last 2 charts, I think, are the key ones we have to look at. For they actually ask, which way do you want this out there? So the first question at the top says, are you in favor of the new striping and bike lane as it currently exists? We had 41% no, and a 57% saying yes, keep it the way it is, 2% blank. The lower chart, we're asking it a different way. We're saying you would like to propose that the city, and then we have a response. 31% said return to previous striping and remove bike lanes. And then 47% said leave existing bike lane in place, and blank 22%. And as we were, over the two-week period, as we were getting these responses in, it was the odd thing we noticed was that all the no's came in early, like the first week, the majority of them. And we thought, well, that's the way it was going to go. And then the second week, that's when we started getting the people that wanted to keep the bike lanes. So, but as you can see, the people that want to keep the bike lanes outweighs the no's. So the council options are leave the current Class 2 bike lanes and upgrade the bicycle master plan per the survey results, or restripe Lotus with parking on both sides and return it to the Class 3 bike lanes. So it's your decision.
Are there any questions for Mr. Hagan at this time regarding the survey or any of the comments that he's made thus far?
I have one question.
Ms. Walker?
Did we correlate how often people use the bike lane with whether or not they wanted it retained? So if someone answered the first question, how often do you use the bike lane, and they say never, were they more likely to answer that they would like the city to revert back to where it was?
That's right.
Did we correlate that and statistically look at that?
No, we did not correlate it.
Okay, because I'm thinking if they're using the bike lane every day, they're going to want to keep it. But I was just wondering if we, in fact, intuitively, that's what it tells me, but I don't know that we.
I think you're
confirmed
correct, though, intuitively. I mean, 50% said they didn't use it, so.
that. Yeah, okay.
50% of 57 or 58 people are 58 responses. So at 25,
8%.
yeah,
It's
a small sampling.
small sample.
Our typical surveys
that
that
a
we do
typical?
is 2%.
2%?
8% is a big return for us.
Oh, it is? Oh,
We
gosh.
send out those ones each, we do twice a year on different services, we get 2% back. City, and that's citywide.
The citywide.
So this is very focused then, where we actually delivered them. 8% is actually not bad.
All right, are there any additional questions? Mr. Silva?
Terry, on the people that were noticed or that a survey was delivered to, are those the homes just east of Lotus?
Why don't you go back to that?
Okay.
This is the diagram here.
Okay.
So we've got, the yellow line is Lotus,
Okay.
and we've gone from Main Street at the north to Ross at the south.
So on the survey, there was an optional information in regards to your address. Did anybody fill that in so that we could kind of assess where the people live that responded? I know it's optional, so I don't know how many filled it in.
It was option, I'm
We
sorry,
did-
we didn't understand.
Is there a lot of addresses put in there? Not very many.
No.
How many
Well,
addresses?
apparently mostly anonymous.
Okay.
Okay. And you were saying that the current layout allows for the aligning of the center of the street.
At the north and south ends, yes.
So if we went with a Class 3, would that disrupt the alignment?
We would have a transition area, and we would restripe that to match up.
The intent of, I'm sorry, Mr. Silva, do you have
Fine.
another question? The intent, when we decided we thought we would have a bike lane, was that it would be used and it would provide safety for the children. But the survey, in my mind, is sending me mixed messages. I'm getting mixed messages. And I think that Mrs. Walker really was onto something when she said, did we correlate, and how do you know who's who here? In many instances, everybody's using it. There's one piece that lead me to believe that, yes, those that are using it do believe it's helping the children and providing safety for them to get back and forth to school.
Yes.
And then there's the opposition who says, well, it's reducing my off-street parking.
Well, the majority of the homes, well, the homes on the east side still have their parking adjacent to their lots.
Mhm.
But what they face, though, is when there are events at the fields, there are more people parking off that. I mean, the parking spaces on the east side of Lotus fill up, and people have to park other areas. And that's it. That does impact people off of Lotus then, to a greater extent to the homes further away.
Okay, any questions?
How,
Okay, Mr. Solomon has a question, just.
Terry, of the different age groups, which one did you find used it the most? I see a lot of adults bike riding on the weekends and
Mhm.
after work. I live right off of Ross and 19th Street, and they seem to have always people riding on their bikes. Is there a certain group? I know we talked about the kids going to school, but
The question dealing with who in your household uses the bike lanes, entire family was 43%, and then children 5%. So it looks like it's more of a family thing.
I think to Mr. Solomon's point, there's probably a number of riders from outside the area that didn't participate in the survey that do use that bike lane for what it's intended.
yes, if you go out from Forester
Yeah.
coming in, you see people riding up and down that street.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mr. Silva, you had a question?
Yes, how often is the retention basin used for practices, activities that would bring other traffic into that street? I don't know if you or Chris can answer that.
I don't know.
I'm sorry, not Chris.
It's pretty much, is Christie with me?
Retention basin usage? Often?
Yes.
Often? Or just on Lotus?
I mean, weekends, I mean, I know we have soccer over there, we won't be doing that.
Ms. Reister, would you mind standing up so your voice would project a little bit better for us, please? Thank you.
And Ms. Reister, could you go, talk about first the practice nights and then the game nights as they existed, and then what should exist in the future?
Well, because there are so many different leagues and so many kids playing and not enough fields, we did use Lotus heavily this year to accommodate for the different leagues and all of the kids playing. It's our intent next year to go back to having one soccer league, so hopefully that we won't need to use it as much, but they still do use it for practices. Obviously, there are no lights or anything there, so there's nothing there after dark, but it was heavily used this year, and I do foresee it being used in the future to some degree, as well as the families that are out there that do use it on a regular basis. So.
I see T-ball practice there quite often as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Mr. Jackson?
Terry, I realize that the surveys are not real popular, but is there was there any discussion on how we could get a better return? I know that you said these were hand delivered. Being that there's really only 5 or 6 questions, what kind of time would it have taken to try to get those answers as they go, as they go door to door?
Let's see, I believe it was 700?
708.
Yeah. It would have taken quite a bit of staff time. As it was, we didn't really have a budget to do a mailer. We probably got more of a better return because we did go to household and deliver these. And so we probably got a higher percentage, like the city manager mentioned. This is almost 4 times what we'd normally get on a survey if we mailed it out.
I also wonder how many people didn't return them because they didn't want to pay postage. And was there people that might have wanted to chime in on this issue, but either didn't take the time or didn't want to spend money?
Seems to me they could have called, right, or dropped it off at City Hall. I think that if there was instructions on the survey itself that you
Yes.
could drop it off at City Hall.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, it just seems a sad commentary that only 8% of the folks decided to return it. But
Yeah.
I think that we probably can just move on this item.
Okay.
It seems to me that the majority of people would like to retain it the way it is, so
Yes.
that would be my recommendation, that we
Okay.
just leave the Lotus Avenue bike lane configuration as currently configured.
Is that in the form of a motion, Ms. Walker?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Then we're going to have a second?
Second.
Okay. Moved by Walker, moved by Councilmember Walker, second by Councilmember Silva, to leave our bike lane configured just as it is, based upon the results from the survey and the staff's presentation. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Here. No opposition? Okay, thank you. So the motion carries unanimously. We'll give a few minutes. Mr. Solomon needs to be excused for a moment. We'll allow a couple of minutes for him to. We'll allow a couple of minutes. We're going to move forward with item 8, even in his absence, but we just wanted to give him time to exit the room. So item number 8 is under new business, discussion and any necessary action regarding the award of bid for Measure D bond, Phase 2, 2011 Road Rehabilitation Project to Aggregate Products, Inc. Mr. Hagan?
Thank you, Mayor and council members. There's no impact to the general fund with this project, the award of this project. It's funded by Measure D bond money and LTA, the LTA account. Total cost is $5.5 million. Funding sources are $5 million from Measure D bond, Fund 212, and $588,195 from the regular Measure D LTA fund. The bid results, we received 4 bids. Aggregate Products was the low bidder and determined to be responsive and responsible. If you recall, they did the contract last year. They did that without any change orders, and they gave us a schedule that they kept right on schedule to the day. Again, the funding sources are the Measure D bond money and a funding gap of the $558,195 can be used from Measure D funds to take care of the remainder. This fund here would normally be the source of our annual overlay projects that we've used from the Measure D bond funds, so it's sufficient to cover this project, and we're actually basically taking care of 2013, the overlay project we normally do annually, and including in this project. And there's, due to the scale of magnitude of this project, there's a cost savings, unit cost savings. Staff is not requesting any kind of contingency. The contractor has a proven record of completing their projects without change orders. Schedule is, it'd start in April, the construction would, and complete in August of 2012. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Hagan?
I have.
Mr. Jackson and then Ms. Walker.
Terry, is this the same company that did the downtown overlay?
Yes.
Just to speak to your comment earlier about them keeping on schedule, and they did an excellent job downtown, and I know they met with the downtown businesses, informed them of the time schedule, and kept to it. So it was very impressive. A lot of people in the downtown area were very happy with that.
Thank you. I was very impressed with their ability to keep on schedule for such a large project.
Ms. Walker?
Mr. Hagan and/or Mr. Duran, last time we went through this process, the city was very, very successful with regard to their outreach efforts and communication of the streets to be affected, the posting of notices, the information that was provided. I'm wondering if either Mr. Duran or Mr. Hagan, if you could comment on what the plans are to replicate that level of outreach and communication so that people know which streets are going to be affected when. It seems to me we did mailers, we did newspapers, we did PSAs. I mean, it was no mystery as to what streets were right. The website,
we'll
everything.
do the same this year. Be the same procedure.
Okay, and when will that information, after tonight, and we take action?
We'll start.
Okay. Second item, I think I brought this up before, but will there be an opportunity to do any companion sidewalk rehabilitation at the same time some of these streets are being done? For example, if the street's being reconfigured or resurfaced at the same time we know that there's a missing or a adjacent sidewalk that's not there, or we're missing the handicap ramp or anything like that. Is there any opportunity to marry those two projects as we go forward?
I believe the plans have included that, if there's like replacement of gutter, curb and gutter, that type of thing,
Okay.
and driveway aprons, yes.
Okay, that would be fabulous. I know we kind of missed our opportunity with some sections on 8th Street, the east side of 8th Street, when we resurfaced right there in front of Harding School, because there's still some sections of sidewalk missing. But to the extent we can fill in any of those missing sidewalks and make them continuous, that would be fantastic.
Hi, good afternoon, evening, Council. Just to follow up on that item, there is a contingent amount built into the project for curb gutter and sidewalk. However, it's focused for areas that prohibit drainage or proper drainage, just to fix the street itself. We didn't identify enough sufficient budget to satisfy or complete as many sidewalks as we'd wish, and we can add. If additional funding is identified, we can add it. However, it will slow down the construction because concrete is a lot slower than asphalt rehabilitation.
So, Mr. Campos, does that include the funding that we identified through CDBG for sidewalk rehabilitation, or that funding won't be available at the same time?
That comes later.
That comes later?
It's a separate project.
Okay.
But the sidewalk projects really are separate. They're inside the curb, so they really function differently. It's the curb and the drain and the street. That's what we want to get straight. We can come back in on the sidewalks without any impact to the project.
I was just thinking of the disruption to the homeowners. I mean, we have all that work going on Barberworth Drive with the new sidewalks, and that's it looks fabulous. I'm just thinking that doing the road work and then coming back later and doing the sidewalks, or vice versa, doing the sidewalks and then coming back and doing the road work, if we could just get it all done at the same time, that would minimize the impacts to the residents.
It's also a function of spreading the money as far as we can.
Right.
We have basically 85% of all the streets within the city limits brought up to standard since 2005. So if we had more money, we could do that last 15%, and then we could go after the curb, gutter, and sidewalks. It's just a matter of money.
Thank you, Mr. Hagan.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Yes. Yeah, Mr. Silva?
Terry, we're not allowing for a contingency fee because I think we were all very pleased with the contractor last time and that he didn't do any change orders at all.
Correct.
But is it wise to have, not to plan, what we will do if something happens, a legitimate issue comes about that will require a change order?
We can bring it back to council if it's a high enough number. Otherwise, the city manager can approve it. But this is a unit cost contract, so there's some give and take there. If something unusual came up and we had to eliminate a street, we'd do that, possibly.
Okay. And can you refresh my memory when we went out to bid on this? Was this bidded as a non-prevailing wage project, or was it a prevailing wage project?
It is a prevailing wage
It's a
project.
It is prevailing wage because we're using LTA?
Right, we made that determination last year, because the LTA is not a charter. That's the source of the funding, the LTA agency, which is, so that's why it is prevailing. We went to that legal determination last time.
So did we pay prevailing wage last time?
Yes.
I just have a question regarding the streets. Most of them this time will be in neighborhoods? Could you give us? Oh, gosh, Terry.
This shows the streets that we're doing. I realize that's a small scale. This shows the last year's projects and all the other projects we've done. So that's basically the 85%, but these are the projects.
Go back to I'll call it back to the last screen. The red, for those you,
The previous screen.
Yeah, there you are, right there.
Mm-hmm.
So the blue is the previous streets. The red are the
ones that
the
we're
next streets,
proposing.
and the white are the ones that are not done, have not been done yet.
Correct.
Okay, so we have, okay, we're almost there. All right.
Which includes my street. It's not going to be
No,
done.
but I can't. Yeah, Mr. Silva?
What's our plan for Imperial south of Orange? out to the freeway.
You don't like that little wake-up call after you get off the nice smooth?
I know, you're...
We've got a sewer project there and I believe there's an RSTP project as well. So on the west side, we've got the sewer project, which would be doing the work after the sewer line's done. And on the right side is the RSTP project. So that's coming forward.
So when would
Within
you
the next
project
year.
that we'll be able to
Within the
get that
next
street
12
done?
to 18 months.
I believe the sewer projects are coming at the next meeting.
Did he say?
Those are different projects.
8th
so
Street, I'm sorry.
We're talking about Imperial Avenue.
Imperial Avenue. So, that's right, that's Fairfield Main Street.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, I can see the nice colors. I have no idea where those streets are located. Give me a street. All right, I know where I am located now. What if we were to extend this First Street beyond Orange, going south? Is that listed there?
We've got the actual, all the street
List, there you go.
lists right there. I can
Okay.
email this to you if you'd
Please
like.
do. Please,
Okay.
yes, I would
I'll
like
email
to.
it to all the council
Well,
members.
it's
Yes.
going to be posted on our website tomorrow, though, right? So we'll
Yes,
be able
It's
to-
actually, it'll go
Okay,
to
The
our
well,
newspaper
then-
has a copy of this as well.
It'll go
All
to our
right.
Facebook account, it's actually quicker, and then from there on to the website.
Okay.
All right.
If we take this and we go the other direction, Terry, you said that by the end of this phase, 85% of the streets will be in good condition, which implies that 15% will not. So can you tell me, give me a sense of where those streets that are not going to be part of this project and where they are and what condition they will remain in and for how long?
I think if you go back to the one map that shows the white, like the big stretch of the Brucherie,
Right.
right? Is that Brucherie right there?
But it depends on the funding, and of course, we use LTA as matching funds for grant money, so it depends on how much grant money we get and what those projects, which streets we spend that money, the grant money on with the LTA match funds. And then as we accumulate LTA funds, we'll do future overlay projects.
Mayor and council, as we do these sewer line projects, that sewer line fund will also repave certain lanes. And we have street funds that are also used to reconstruct, 'cause we're using those for reconstruction of projects. So that's why we have a series of funding. And as you recall, for example, Dogwood Road, we had Proposition B money in there, we had LTA money, and we had something else.
Stimulus? Stimulus?
Obama.
Oh, yeah, the
Stimulus
stimulus
dollars.
money. So it's, sometimes your bigger streets are actually coming from other sources of fund. I'll give you an idea, and looked at our current year budget, and we get about $2 million in revenue for the LTA. We spend about 1.6 on our bond debt service to do this project. So we're netting about an extra $300,000-400,000. Last night we learned that we're going to receive an additional $300,000, which I'm stealing the mayor's thunder on that.
No, that's perfectly all right.
But
I think
also,
this is an
sales tax
appropriate time.
sales increases, this revenue increases, and that's where we'll be doing the other projects that are not associated with reconstruction, street money, CDBG projects, et cetera, or as part of a sewer line replacement. So that's why it's a mix. We're not dependent. LTA is our big number, but it's not our only source of revenue for
So
this.
it's likely that we'll get to 100%?
Oh, yes.
Hopefully.
Okay.
Also, we have another $2.5 to $3 million of LTA bond money to do Laboratory between Maine
Yes.
and Orange.
Yes,
Getting right away.
we have not expended all the bond money yet. So, yeah, thank you for that. We have $2 million on Laboratory to do, and that's a lot of right-of-way acquisitions and
Right.
Design.
from Orange to Adams. Well, Barbara Worth.
Mr. Stallman has a question that I'm going to try and allow you
Yes.
to.
Terry, can you go over and show me where First Street is on this map?
Why don't you just walk over to it if you don't have either one.
What are we looking for?
We're looking for First
First.
Street
where we're at right
And we
now.
want to go First Street South.
The reason why I was,
Well, wait a minute. It's somewhere here. In the vacant space,
Well,
is there a red line to it?
This one is.
It's in that small quadrant to your right, upper eye level for Terry. But it will First Street
It's not on this list.
south of,
Actually, Terry, if you go to the
Orange.
listing, we can just look at the list.
Is your specific question, is First Street included?
yes, First Street south of
Well,
Orange. I think that's what
yeah,
Mr. Solomon's
the
question.
problem that has been brought to my attention is that they were going to do the road here and back,
What is that, Fairfield?
Fairfield. And Fairfield is pretty nice. You can drive up and down Fairfield. It's not a really bad road. The road that is terrible is out here in front of First Street.
Well, yeah, they did first part of it. Now we need to go first south. Mhm.
But I was just wondering, was it on there?
Well, I don't know, Mr. Duran is looking at the list. That's east.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
To Hamilton. Is that as far as you're going? I'm sorry? So you're stopping at the tracks? That's about the tracks?
The list is better than that.
Okay. That's fine. Thanks, Terry.
All right, are there
Thank you.
any additional
Well,
questions?
yes.
Yeah, Mr. Silva?
Terry, we had a conversation, I don't know, a couple of months ago with Chris, you and I, in regards to the streets over in Countryside. And that the first phase of that development, which we haven't accepted yet, but yet my understanding is that the streets, and you seem to have concur, are in pretty bad shape, and the residents there actually call them pretty deplorable condition.
And I don't believe we had the funding to include those, right? We since we went over the $5 million by $500,000, we did not include those.
I think the
So-
challenge we'll have is that we actually have streets that are worse than, that are still not done, that are worse than Countryside. And
Correct.
that's the challenge, because the same other residents will come forward and say, well, but our roads were put in 20 years ago, and we're in the 15% group. And, I mean, that's the challenge we had. If we had another 5 million, but we don't at this time. So I think that's where the,
Right, and we also have what's called a pavement management system, and it looks at those different streets, and often, for streets that are just starting to fail, like Countryside, it's cheaper to repair those and bring them up to good condition than let them fail, or than try to rebuild a totally failed street. So the pavement management system is designed to spend the least amount of money to maintain the streets at the highest percentage of optimum percentage. So we'll look at that pavement management system and base it on that.
Terry, are any of the Countryside streets in this plan at all today?
No.
Okay.
So what do I tell to the residents that are out there calling me, and they're saying that it's in pretty bad shape, and I have not taken the time to go out there and drive myself. But
I drove those. There are portions, the Marty Coyne
Right.
portion is much worse than the rest of it, and for some reason, those streets are failing sooner than the others.
Because what's our answer to them? Because
The next
they're
funding
going to come
cycle.
here. I can guarantee you they'll be here in the next couple of board council meetings complaining about that.
As the LTA funds build back up, we're have future projects.
Have to be the next cycle. Okay. Any additional questions? I know that we've, for a long time, have heard a lot of concerns that residents have and members have about their streets, and I wish we could do them all.
I do too.
I mean, all at once.
Yes.
But I understand they have to be phased in because the funds are coming in that kind of fashion. So if they show up, we'll try our best to explain to them that the funding's not available for them to exercise a little bit more patience, and hopefully we'll have their street looked at their next cycle. What's the pleasure of the body? Mr. Duran, before I move away from this, Mr. Duran brought up an issue I think is important for us to go ahead and illuminate. Last evening at the LTA, we approved the budgets, and during that budget approval, we approved budgets for 3 years, and during the budget approval, we recognized that some of the funds that had not been allocated appropriately to various cities. And in the case of El Centro, we're scheduled to get about another $300,000. Is it 1.3 million?
Yeah, if I can illuminate a little bit.
Yes.
What we have now is we have the 3 financial statements up until 2010, because when the county had it prior, they were behind, and there were some fixes to be done in the 08, so everything got to be held up to get the other 2 years out, and so we got reconciliations. From the audited statements, they found that within the fund balance, there was additional funds to be issued, and because there's a retention in the statute. But the key on this is when they actually went back and did the numbers, they found there was a bit of a misallocation. For example, some of the smaller cities' bonds were paid from the gross when it should have been paid from the net, and it changed the percentage. So from that, the city of El Centro will receive an additional $300,000 this year than what we were not expecting. And our finance director hasn't even heard this yet. So it all happened last night, and the board approved that. Some of the cities are getting 24,000, some are larger, some are smaller. It had to do with a audit of the allocations to assure that the proper allocations that occurred. And this is a cumulative number. It wasn't from just last year, it was from years back when they brought the number forward to 2010. It looks like all the internal controls are now in place with the ICTC to ensure that proper allocation occurs. So we're going to get a little bit of a windfall. And there may be an opportunity to do other things, but I think once we get this contract done, we can see where we're at.
So that's a bit of good news. And we want to applaud Hutchison and Bloodgood, who were the auditors, to recognize that, I want to call it slight flaw, and make those corrections, because every city that was present last night, every jurisdiction was very pleased to know that some additional funding would be coming in their direction. What's the pleasure of the body for item regarding the bond, which is item 8?
Okay.
Move for approval of resolution number 12-32. Resolution of the City Council of the City of El Centro awarding the bid and authorizing the execution of a contract for the Measure D Bond Phase 2 2011 Roads Rehabilitation Project to Aggregate Products, Inc.
Second.
Okay. Moved by Walker, second by Silva. What's the pleasure of the body?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah,
Aye.
okay. Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Item number 9, discussion and any necessary action regarding amending the El Centro City Code number 2-115 relating to city attorney duties generally. Ms. Becker?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The City Attorney Task Force asked me to draft to prepare a draft staffing and external counsel utilization plan that addressed, among other issues, letting El Centro Regional Medical Center retain its own general counsel, and that general counsel would take over the day-to-day duties with El Centro Regional, leaving the city attorney's office only with oversight authority. Continue to maintain continue to monitor the claims and the litigation, agenda review, attendance at the board meeting, just in an oversight capacity. But upon looking at the municipal code section that delineates the duties of the city attorney, it was clear that that wasn't contemplated in the ordinance as it currently read, because it makes reference, the ordinance as it currently reads, makes reference to employment of special legal counsel from time to time. So it has subject matter and time restrictions. So as the ordinance currently written, I wouldn't have the authority to retain general counsel for El Centro Regional Medical Center. So the proposed amendment in front of you is to add a new subsection 6 to the ordinance, which would allow my office to retain general counsel for any of the city's agencies.
Ms. Becker, can you explain how is it then that the hospital currently retains external counsel? Because we know, similar to what our city does, we make utilization both at the city and the hospital of a whole laundry list of external attorneys. So how is that authority currently handled?
That's in section 2-117, employment of special legal counsel. That section authorizes the city attorney to retain special legal counsel to associate with the city attorney in any matter customarily requiring or warranting the need of such special legal counsel by reason of their special expertise. So, and that's how that same section allows us to do that, not only for the hospital, but for the city and also for the RDA when it was still in existence.
But you don't, in your opinion, that doesn't give us enough latitude to allow the hospital to retain its own counsel.
I don't believe so because of the language, special legal counsel, associate with the city attorney from time to time. I just think that contemplates what we currently have, which is, for example, when we have a physician contract, we send it out to Mary Norvell she's at Procopio?
Or to some...
Bookman Lundy Hooper. So that's a specialized assignment that we give to her. She's not doing any of the day-to-day stuff. We're looking at the public agency issues in terms of Brown Act and public records requests and things of that nature. She's just doing a very specialized. And so I think that the way that this is written, it provides only for that specialized retention.
Any additional questions for Ms.
Yes.
Becker? Or Mr. Silva?
So Chris, if I'm reading the new section 6, and looking at the letter from the hospital in terms of the options that they would consider, one of them, if you look at the hospital's letter and option number 2, engage general counsel by employment agreement. I infer from that they're talking about hiring their own attorney, which would be retained and hired by the hospital.
Well, no, the way the ordinance it would be amended, I would be retaining, I would be the person executing the retainer agreement so that we can maintain the attorney-client privilege between the council and the board.
Okay. So if the hospital wanted to go that route, the city would hire the attorney.
Correct. Well,
actually, if I can clarify from the administrative aspects of this, under what's being proposed to you by the city attorney, it is the city that will be retaining the attorney, and that attorney will be subordinate to the city attorney. I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to try to, the legal service proposal that was received this afternoon, that's a separate matter of a different direction I think they want to go, but I would leave that to the city attorney and the legal task force. What's in your report is the allowance for an ongoing attorney, and I'm going to use within the city, for us to have an ongoing planning attorney. We can now enter into a contract and have an ongoing planning attorney.
No.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
This is what we're proposing here.
Just a moment.
This is for allows the city attorney to have other attorneys on a regular basis to handle that, and that's where I think we're headed.
I think there is a definite disconnect between what this council has discussed and the direction that's been given with regard to what we would like to see happen with regard to El Centro Regional Medical Center having the authority as a board under the direction of their CEO and their admin team to retain their own general counsel, to provide legal services to the hospital with an indirect reporting line, some kind of a reporting line to the city attorney's office. But the thought is for that general counsel to exercise the greatest amount of independence on behalf of the hospital, at the same time recognizing the reporting relationship with the city attorney. Case in point, I think that we absolutely said there would be no value in having the city attorney sit in on a hospital board meeting. That's I think was rejected outright as part of the. It was presented to us, and we said no, that's not part of our vision. Part of our vision is the city attorney's office focuses on city issues, city matters, see what we can do to bring down our cost in having to retain external outside counsel for the whole host of city services currently being outsourced. Let the hospital retain legal services in the areas of expertise where we find that they need them the most. That with the downsizing of our city attorney's office, this is a prime opportunity for the hospital to retain legal counsel that's accessible and available, as opposed to our continuing to share Ms. Becker's time. We need her for ourselves, not only for current things that she's handling, but the whole expectation was, again, like I said previously, to bring down that reliance on external counsel.
Okay.
I mean, that was my understanding of the direction that the council wanted us to go.
Any additional questions? I'm sorry, there's a question by Mr. Jackson.
Obviously, that was a decision that was made prior to me becoming on the council, but I'm not comfortable with a situation where there is not a direct answering to our city attorney, and that we allow the hospital have its own legal counsel that doesn't somehow directly report and have the responsibility of oversight by our city attorney. The hospital is still a fiduciary responsibility of this council and this city, and to allow them to have their own counsel separate from and not having a direct tie to our city attorney is not something that I would support at any time.
Well, and with all due respect, Mr. Jackson, I don't believe that you've sat on the hospital board of trustees. You haven't had that opportunity. I don't know that you've had an opportunity to attend a meeting of the El Centro Regional Medical Center. So you're basing this on, a sense that there has to be a direct reporting relationship, and yet if we look at the biggest threats to the hospital, they have absolutely nothing to do with a reporting relationship. They have to do with having the expertise available to the hospital in those areas that our current city attorney's office is not prepared to address. And those are primarily in the areas of compliance and changing healthcare law, where they need in-house expertise to make sure that it protects them and ultimately the city financially. Because in the last number of years, the biggest financial challenges faced by the hospital have been as a result of compliance issues that have gotten away from us at the hospital. So I
agree with that. I just don't see the need to have a completely separate. I agree that to retain an attorney that has an expertise in those areas is certainly something that's going to be a cost saving to the city, and something that we should certainly look into and possibly accomplish. I just don't see that there needs to be a complete severing of responsibilities and ties to our city attorney's office.
Right, and I'm not proposing that was the direction that the prior council gave, but I think that there was a clear indication that what we don't want is a duplication of services, that we do want to be streamlined, efficient, and transparent in what we're bringing about, and that means there has to be a certain amount of let go. Our city attorney's office has to say, we are going to hire and retain competent legal counsel for the hospital. We're going to continue with our competent legal counsel in the city attorney's office, focusing on two very different areas of law. It'd be kind of like having your cardiologist who has that specialty and then saying, by the way, I think I want my podiatrist to come and sit in on my last EKG. I mean, why would we want that duplication of service? Going back to, I don't think it's a worthwhile it's not worth our city attorney's time to sit in on a board meeting where every single item has already been vetted by a committee, has already been through legal review, and then the board is simply there to take final action. I just don't, plus I don't think it sends the right message to either your hospital board of trustees, your hospital administration, or the attorney that you've assigned or hired, that, you know, basically we're there looking over your shoulder. I just don't think that sends the right message.
I just...
But just a moment, please. I think Mr. Silva is a member of the hospital board. Would you like to?
And none of the discussions that we've had at any point have contemplated a complete detachment from our responsibility and our obligation to look after the City of El Centro. However it's done, there's going to have to be a link between that attorney and reporting back to our city attorney. But I saw more of a global, responsibility as opposed to the day-to-day operations and legal services that the hospital needs. From my perspective, if we were to, let's say that we would opt for option number 2 through an employment agreement, but that employment agreement would be with the city, then it would seem to me more beneficial that we go back to the previous way of doing it and have an associate city attorney that provides that representation to the hospital. So I'm not so sure that was the direction that we wanted to go. I concur with Ms. Walker in that I saw it more of letting the hospital have their own attorney services with people that are more specialized, in tune with hospital law, and alleviate some of the external counsel that gets retained to a certain degree, because I don't think that will ever happen, but have the city have a more of a global oversight and have that counsel work for the hospital.
Mr. Solomon?
I also sit on the hospital board, and I took an entirely different view of this. I thought that the city attorney would have maybe not a very large play at the hospital, but I thought the city attorney would be kept up to date on important issues so that we as a council will be able to pull that information up anytime we wanted to, instead of having the hospital go off on its own. And not that they would, because I think that Mr. Green does a great job of watching over things. But I personally, I would like to see, maybe it's what Mr. Silver said, a global type, but I would like for them to report to the city.
Well, but Mr. Solomon, the reason we have 2 members of the city council sitting on the board of trustees is to provide that oversight, right? I mean, there is no reason for us to have appointed that 7-member board of trustees of very, very capable, competent people if we are simply going to abrogate whatever duties and responsibilities they gave them and sit as a second board of trustees. I think we need the independence of that board from this board, from their council to our council, with the oversight. I think we're all in agreement. Some level of oversight, but not getting in the weeds, not getting into the day-to-day activities. I would like to hear from Mr. Green as to this legal service proposal, because we did ask the hospital board of trustees for their opinion as to what they would like to see happen.
Before Mr. Green speaks, Mr. Green, if you wouldn't mind yielding for Mr. Jackson, who has some either more questions for clarification or some statements.
Well, I guess just a quick statement to something. I guess my uncomfortableness about this is the comment about washing our hands and letting them do their thing. And ultimately, the 5 of us up here are still responsible for that hospital and still responsible whatever happens over there. I don't disagree that we might have a very competent and expertise type board over there. Certainly we have a lot of faith in David, but that may not always be the case. And moving forward, I still feel that there's one person here that reports directly to this council, and that's the city attorney. And if I want information, or if any of us on a council want information, we should be able to go to that person and get that information. What the proposal, or what you're proposing, is that we wouldn't have that luxury, because they would have their own attorney that would not be beholden to us, but would be beholden to the Board of Trustees. That's where I don't have a comfort level with that at all. I want to be able to always.
You have a disconnect from what I've said. The hospital retains its own attorney with an oversight role with the city attorney, but our city attorney's office is focused on, first and foremost, our needs, our legal needs, with a global awareness of what's happening at the hospital, but we're not duplicating services. I mean, there is no need for.
I'm not proposing that we duplicate
Okay.
services.
Okay, and neither am I. What I'm saying is,
we'll hear
let's
from,
look for
Mr.
legal
Green.
expertise in both areas and coordinate oversight.
We're going to see if Mr. Green can add clarity, or either muddy the water even, either that, or you will muddy the water even more, whichever one happens. But we're here to hear from you, Mr. Green.
Well, hopefully
based
this
upon
can clear it up. The intent of the board and Mr. Calderon planned to be here tonight, but unfortunately something came up and he couldn't get over the hill from a court appearance. So he apologized for not being here, but the committee, or the board, put a committee together to form that letter to give to you, and that committee's sense was essentially what's being presented, that the hospital would either by contract, as 1 and 2, either by contract or by employment agreement, obtain a general legal counsel that can cover the things for the hospital, but still, I think, and it's pointed out in there, still have the obligation to keep the city attorney apprised of what's happening. The city attorney would have access to that person whenever needed, and also would be reportable to that person on the activities of the hospital, especially regarding issues of liability, litigation, and those issues of prime concern, but not have to involve the city attorney in all of the finite detail that takes place. We get caught up in so much drama in all of these different committees that the idea was, most of you have been there and seen it. You, Jason, you've been there and seen it. We get caught up in that, and trying to eliminate the time that it takes for the city attorney to have to sit through that, I think, was the prime goal. And then also to then enlist someone that's totally familiar with the hospital. I think that person, at the invitation of Ms. Becker, would be available to come to this council anytime you wanted them to talk to you about it, or report directly to her so she can. So I don't think the intent was to bypass that at all, but really to try to build that bridge so that there's additional information in there. So our intent was really just trying to bolster what you've got in your city attorney's office without adding to the burden.
Okay. Are all minds clear with the statement made by Mr. Green?
Yes.
Okay. Then let me add what I envisioned this was going to be. I think I'm going to do it by way of my understanding and some background. Certainly the task force was charged with trying to look at a way to maximize the city attorney's department, recognizing that we had lost one of our attorneys, and that was Mr. Hernandez upon his retirement. Same time, we also realized that there was a need for legal services to be provided to El Centro Regional Medical Center. Now, in this organizational structure, I see the city council sharing responsibilities in some extent with the hospital. Some responsibilities and authority we delegate to the board. We delegate to the board unequivocally the responsibility of, or authority rather, of selecting their CEO, and he or she in turn select all of the staff members. The shared responsibility is fiduciary, and that's where we have this strange mix that's now creating what seems to be some discussion as to how we go about best utilizing the services of our legal counsel to make sure that all bases would be covered in the realm of liability and perhaps litigation. There's no question that health law is a very complex, and it's deemed to get even more so as we look to the future and whatever health care bills are coming forward from the federal level and also from the state level, and as we're looking at various ways, how do we continue to service the population that we have that are in need of a great deal and have limited resources in which to provide that to them. We met not so long ago and wondering whether or not we should go through an integration process with Pioneer Memorial Hospital so that we can try to better serve this region, and I mean Imperial County. So I see two options for us, as was outlined by Ms. Becker. Now, Ms. Walker raised an issue that leads me to believe that I think she was a part of that committee along with, was it Mr. Edney, Ms. Walker?
Mr. Silva.
Oh, you and Mr. Silva, okay. So you and Mr. Silva had met with Ms. Becker, and somehow it appears to me that Ms. Becker's understanding of what you were giving her was not realized to the same way that you had presented it. So she's outlined for us these two areas. One is to engage the services of an individual under the auspices of your department, the city's attorney's department. That individual would be assigned to the hospital, and that primary focus for that individual will be the hospital, attending all of their committee meetings, etc. You would then only be there as the oversight individual, and that this employee would be charged with all of the responsibilities that deal with health care at the hospital. Is that an assessment that captures your statements a little earlier, Ms. Becker?
Well, I don't know that it would be an employment relationship. I think that my office would just engage counsel on behalf of the hospital.
Okay, so you, all right, then, so then that employee, you would sit in and engage him, but he or she would be an employee of the hospital.
I think there's two different things. It
Okay,
could be-
because I'm getting...
Yeah, I think, Madam Mayor, it could be a couple of arrangements. It could be that what ends up happening is that there is a contract or a retainer agreement
Yeah.
put in place with an entire law firm to provide services to the hospital. They would retain their corporate status as simply counsel to the hospital, but it would be the entire law firm that would be available. See, Procopio
Okay,
or something
well,
like
but
that.
which is-
Or I think the second proposal that's here is, as Ms. Becker has done, retain Mr. Pace, a local attorney, who retains his own independent contractor status, but he is retained exclusively to perform work on behalf of the hospital at the direction of Ms. Becker.
Okay.
I don't think that in any of our discussions, we're talking about supplementing by bringing on board a new employee.
But as we stand now, we do use outside counsel for the hospital on various issues that are beyond your department in which to address. And the hospital has no problem in making sure that they discuss this with you before they engage this outside counsel to do that. All right, then what's before us today? Are we looking for some kind of action today? Because I want to make sure that it's clear that I really do like the city attorney's department having oversight. I really like that. And so if that component can still be in the mix, then I have no problem with us moving forward. If that component is not in the mix, then I have an issue with it.
Well, the ordinance as it's currently drafted would leave my office with oversight authority, because I would be retaining the counsel for the hospital, whether it's Procopio, the entire firm, or whether it's
An individual.
individual.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Solomon, or Ms. Walker, Mr.
No,
Silva?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that there's the linkage between what the hospital board and administration and making sure that we're doing what's best for them and what's best for the city. So we're going to make sure that there's the linkage between what the hospital is proposing here with regard to identification and retention and making it aligned with Ms. Becker's abilities to sync with that and retain the council.
Mr. Green, you seem to, would you like a question?
A question. Then
Okay.
does that then allow the board to engage the legal counsel with the city attorney's approval? Is that how that would work? Yeah.
Would that be all right, Mr. Green? I mean,
It
is
works.
that within?
I think it would work for the board.
That's,
But-
let's, before we get too far down that path, Ms. Becker, is that, that was not what I was thinking, I don't know.
No, I think that the board would have the ultimate decision as to who they wanted me to retain for them.
Okay.
Okay. And if I presented that badly, this is what I described was what we're talking here, is where agencies find the attorney they need for that specialty, and the retaining allows free flow of information without any loss of rights as the agencies in the city for attorney-to-attorney privilege. So
Okay.
I must have stated it badly, because very much what Ms. Becker said, what Mr. Green is saying, is what I was trying to support.
Well, I think that, I don't know, maybe minds are more clear now. All minds
Sure.
clear, Mr. Solomon?
I just need, Cheryl has been on the hospital board
A number of
a
years.
number of years,
Mhm.
and she does an outstanding job while she was there. And so I definitely want to make sure that I listen to her point of view on this, because I know that if anybody loves that hospital, I don't know anyone loves it as much as Cheryl does.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to make sure that you're comfortable.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon. I appreciate that. I absolutely think we're all on the same book and page. We want to
Okay.
do what's best for the hospital. We want to maintain the oversight of the city attorney's
It's
office.
imperative.
And as long as there's that spirit of cooperation in the identification and the retention of the hospital's choice of outside counsel, I think we're good to go.
And some interfacing. Strong interfacing. That for me, that provides
Right,
me a
we-
better comfort level.
We want interface, but not duplication.
Well, I don't know that we would have, Ms. Becker probably won't have time to duplicate.
Exactly, exactly.
But at the same time, as long as that interfacing is there, all right. So what's the pleasure of the body regarding this? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Jackson, you have another
Chair,
question.
I just want to, I think I agree with Ms. Walker. I think we're on the same page now. Just to clarify, the hiring of the attorney will be done by the city attorney's office and will be assigned to the board, the hospital board trustees, to take care of their legal services, but will still be under the auspices of the city attorney's office. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I'm okay with that.
And Mayor, for clarification, because our finance director but the invoices are being paid by the hospital while being reviewed by the city attorney's office, not unlike the RDA was operating. That's why this is very familiar ground for us, so that the public understands how this is working. It's, from an outsider, it's going to look like it's hospital attorney, but from a legal perspective, we have that relationship.
Sure.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Green, your face has a puzzled look about it. Or is that just a satisfied look? Maybe I misunderstood it.
I have a question
There are
for,
some elements that need to be worked out about
Okay.
what our past
What it's going to
relationship
look like,
was,
okay.
and we have to work that out still.
well, doesn't, Mr. Green, did I understand you to say that there is in fact a task force or
There
a
is.
subcommittee of the full board that has the responsibility with regard to this project?
The board assigned a task force, which actually is the chairman, the vice chair, and the secretary.
So you have a ready-made project team to work, and I believe you've already received some proposals for legal services as well.
Yes, we have.
Okay, so
And for
fantastic.
full
So this is the
clarification, we're going to
board's
need to
executive
meet and talk about
chair, vice chair,
the
secretary.
past
That's
financial
the
arrangements we made back in 1998, which I thank the city clerk for getting me a copy of. We need to revisit that to
Yes.
okay, well, what's the appropriate cost, direct cost that we're going to between the city and the agency.
Okay, but that part,
So we-
I'm sorry.
Am I understanding this correctly, though, the invoice for this, the board will decide on the contract because they're going to be paying the invoice on the attorney, is that
Well,
correct?
yeah, you're going to be managing that. What you have is,
Okay.
actually what invoices do for us is.
We're
it
clear.
tells us-
That was
Okay.
the puzzle look. I thought, wait a minute.
Okay, are all minds clear?
Yes.
All minds are clear? Okay. Then what's the pleasure of the body regarding this? Ms. Becker, did you have any other piece you need to add? No. Okay.
I'd
What's the
like
pleasure?
to move for approval of ordinance number 12-03, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of El Centro amending Section 2-115 of Article 3 of Chapter 2 of the Code of the City of El Centro relating to the duties of the city attorney.
It's been moved
Second.
by Walker, second, Mr. Solomon beat you to that this time, Mr. Silva. Moved by Walker, second by Solomon. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. We're down to item number 10. Discussion and any necessary action regarding amending the El Centro City Code, Section 13-31.1 to Article 3, changing the name of the municipal hospital. Ms. Becker?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was reviewing the code in preparation for the previous item, number 9. I was reviewing the city's municipal code, and I looked at the section that addresses the hospital to ensure that nothing in there needed to be amended as well to allow for the provision of general counsel. And I noticed that the section 1331 of our municipal code establishes the hospital as El Centro Community Hospital. However, back in 1986, the Board of Trustees voted to change the name of the hospital to El Centro Regional Medical Center. It's been going by that name ever since, but nowhere in our code is that reflected. So it would suggest to someone who's just looking at our code that we still call the hospital El Centro Community Hospital. So this ordinance just adds a new section that clarifies that the name change was made in 1986.
So, like cleanup? We're
Yes.
Exactly.
20 years cleanup, okay. I be-
Yes.
Believe it or not.
Cleanup language that came 25 years.
Yeah, but you
after.
believe it or not, I remember this. I remember this, and I thought we had changed it. Okay, well, thank God that I'm grateful that you're bringing it to our attention so we can address it now. What's the pleasure of the body on this item?
So moved.
Okay. It's been moved by Mr. Silva, second by two individuals, Jackson and Solomon, for approval of ordinance number 12-04, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of El Centro adding section 13-31.1 to Article 3 of Chapter 13 of the Code of the City of El Centro, changing the name of the municipal hospital and waive and pass as first reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. I hope we're moving over for item 11, which are appointments. I hope each of you have the list of those individuals who would like to serve on the Community Service Commission. I had a chance to speak with all but one. I wasn't able to reach this individual by phone, and I tried several times, so I really am saddened that I wasn't able to reach that individual. There's no question in my mind that each one of these candidates would make a fine individual to add to and round out the number of individuals serving on this very important committee or commission. But the name that I would like to place before you is Cheyenne Maria Gaddis. She's listed as number A on your list.
Move for approval.
I placed that there for your consideration.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Jackson, second by Silva. The name Cheyenne Maria Gaddis will now be the new member of the Community Service Commission. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. I intend to call Ms. Gaddis and notify her of this. I also intend to call each one and let them know that I do value and appreciate their willingness to step forward and be of service to the city, and to see whether or not they would like to have their name retained for some future appointment at some future board or commission that may become vacant. The next item for us to consider is, I'm sorry? Okay. The next item before us is the discussion and any necessary action regarding the appointment of a delegate and alternate for the Southern California Association of Governments General Assembly to be held April 4th and 5th in Los Angeles, California. Who would like to serve as a delegate? Ms. Walker, are you going to be able to attend?
I'm already going to be there as the Imperial County representative to Skagit.
Would you object, would you serve as our delegate,
Yes.
please? Okay.
Unless
So Wednesday?
it's a Wednesday, Thursday.
Do we have an individual willing to assume the alternate?
I'll do it.
Mr. Silva. Okay, thank you very much. Our delegate will be Ms. Walker, and Mr. Silva will be the alternate. We have a listing of informational items, 13, 14, 15. The successor agency of the redevelopment, do we have anything to come before us? Do we have anything to come before us on the housing agency?
Do we have any additional update with regard to the library relocation project? Okay, thank you for the update, Mr. Banks.
We have nothing, Mr. Banks? Okay. The council want to do any recess?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
on item 15, we were looking for
Oh, I'm
some
sorry.
discussion about
Thank you.
attendance and what, and the impact
Thank
of
you
council
so
meeting.
much. Yes, thank you so
City
much.
clerk reminded me of that.
I'm so glad she did. Item 15, this city have been, will be the recipient of an award by CalEd. It is, let me see, where's my information?
The date on that is the 21st.
March 21st.
March 21st in Sacramento.
March 21st in Sacramento, which is the day after our scheduled council meeting. I would hope that, I'm planning to attend, and if anyone else is planning to attend, I would like this council to consider whether or not we would want to have our meeting, because we would need to leave earlier in order to be there by noon for the presentation. Or would the council consider postponing the meeting until the following week?
27th.
Thank you. I'm sorry?
That's the hospital meeting, isn't it?
Okay, whisper out loud so we can hear you.
I was just saying that was probably a good idea. Well, for me, that was a good idea because I'm not going to be here on the 20th.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, you mean it's a good idea for us to postpone the meeting?
Correct.
Oh, I was thinking it was a good, all right.
So the 27th, if,
Is,
That conflicts with the hospital board
the hospital board meets on the 27th?
Yes,
on the
it
fourth
does.
Tuesday of the month.
And I'll be out of town the 27th.
All right. How many items do we have to come before this council, Mr. Duran? Could we meet Monday?
oh, I think we can move. Oh, there is a public hearing for the economic development.
Public hearing scheduled for the...
But that's going to be impacted if we move it at all, so we may have to repost. It's a general plan element for,
It's a CDBG?
and CDPG.
Well, because we have two meetings that day, could we add open session items to the 11:30 meeting? Or move up the time and start at 5 o'clock?
Well, even
Something
earlier,
like that.
let's 11:30. Are we able to do that? To have our closed session enrolled right into,
We'd have to repost.
we'd have to repost.
Oh, we don't want to do that. but-
Okay.
There's
So-
there's a time and date on that.
It's already been posted for the 20th.
Or
Okay.
we stay with the 20th.
All right, we'll stay with the 20th, and if I'm going to be leaving, I probably will be here. Mr. Solomon has already identified that he will not be present.
We'll be down to 3.
So who won't be here on the 20th? Did you say you wouldn't be here? Or you will?
I'll be here.
Everybody
We'll be
else
here.
will be here? Okay. Goodness. All right, could we, well, gosh, we'd have to repost if we move it up. We're making it difficult for us.
When we posted this, we did not know we had the award.
Well, I understand that.
By the way, let's
Yeah.
go back to the key member for both the two items we're talking about needs to be in Sacramento to accept the award. So we'd rather repost.
Okay,
This
how
is a
much of it,
six-year award we're working
how
on.
much difficulty would it be to repost, Ms. Caldwell? How much difficulty, or is it Mrs. Viacania? How much difficulty would it be to repost?
Ours went into the first 2 days, so I think we could follow tomorrow, right? Yeah, we can pull the housing out of it.
Okay.
We can, okay.
We'll figure something out.
So which date and time then we'd like to have a meeting?
I think we just push that to the next regular meeting.
So then,
Oh, we can't? Oh, yeah,
We can do it maybe the next week.
the 27th?
Because of the 30-day comment period.
Well,
that's-
we have to pick another date then, we
Okay.
don't want, whatever the hospital.
well, Monday,
Well, why can't we, what time are you going to go to Sacramento? We couldn't,
Be flying out, say,
Yeah.
on the day before on Tuesday.
it has to be done the
So
day
I'm not
before.
gonna be available for the council meeting.
We're going to be,
but we meet at 11:30. That's why I'm asking, can
But
we,
I'm flying out from San Diego at 2:00.
Yeah.
that won't work then.
Okay. So the hospital meets on Wednesday or Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, the 27th.
Tuesday.
would
Or the
Monday?
26th?
Monday? Would Monday?
Not evening, I'm
No.
tied up on Monday evening.
Okay, Mr. Jackson?
You talking about lunch on Monday? A lunch meeting?
No, we're talking about Monday evening.
Monday evening? I could do Monday
Oh,
evening.
by the way, we could post a noon meeting for all of this
On Monday?
on the day you'd like, all the public hearings and everything. We'll just do it as a
Mr.
noon
Sol-
meeting.
And Mr. Silver?
Noon is fine.
Mr. Chris,
Okay.
Mr. Keister, can we have this
Okay,
show?
okay.
Noon?
We'll have the senior lunch, but we can.
We'll post it at the council chamber. We'll hold it at the council, because.
But Mr. Solomon won't be here,
We'll
so...
hold it at the council chamber, not a problem. Sorry to do this on the fly, but
All right.
So noon on March
Noon
26th?
on Monday, yes.
26th.
Is that satisfactory for everyone?
everybody, looking to my staff.
Are we expecting a long meeting, or we just have a few items, or?
Well, we have that public hearing.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
We have one
And
public
if
hearing.
we have
for
other
sure.
items, but we'll,
We may be able to shift the other ones
All
to
right.
the first meeting in April,
I'm okay with that.
without it being April Fool. No. Is that acceptable, the date? Can we repost? I'm looking at Ms. Viacania, Ms. Caldwell, and Ms. Becker. Are we able to repost that?
we'll just shove everything else to the 3rd. Yeah, we'll keep it rolling.
Okay.
We'll the following week's a regular council meeting. Whatever is not critical, we'll go to the 3rd.
Thank you. Okay.
Noon on the 26th of March, or
At the chamber.
at the chamber.
At the chamber.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So no meeting on March.
No meeting on the Tuesday? No.
That was fine.
Okay. Now, are there any public comments? Anyone in the audience wish to have any comments at this time? Okay. Council, are you interested in a recess?
No.
All right. Do you have any reports from council members? Or any task force reports?
Well, with regard to the task force, with the appointment of the new chief probation officer, Ms. Sanders, I'll move forward with contacting Supervisor Kelly to get our meetings scheduled.
Okay.
In addition, I had a couple of other items. Is Ms. Reister still here?
Yes. Ms. Reister?
Ms. Reister, I understand that the Calexico Sports Summit was very successful. I'm wondering if perhaps we could call down there and check to see how they thought that went, and maybe do something similar here. The other thing is, I'm wondering if the Community Services Commission has spent any time discussing childhood obesity and maybe some partnerships with school districts to start addressing childhood obesity issues.
We haven't, but yeah, that's.
Could you maybe add that to the agenda and see if there's some interest in that? I'd like the council to start taking action, but I think that if it were to come up from the committee with some recommendations, that would be great.
For childhood obesity?
Yes.
Okay.
The last item is, I think that most of you received a copy of an email with regard to perhaps having some workshops for city employees to get greater understanding of healthcare benefits. So the proposal that I've talked with Mr. Duran and Ms. Brownlee about is that perhaps we could have a workshop where the city's health insurance broker and the HR department could make a presentation to employees to discuss our group insurance as well as anticipated changes in the marketplace in not only this year but in coming years as the different elements of the Obama administration healthcare plan come to be a reality. The caveat is I really think that the workshop for discussion has to be after hours because there's a lot of city employees who I think another member of their family makes the decisions for health care. And so if we have it during just regular working hours, it could be that a spouse who otherwise fulfills that role isn't available to hear the presentation. So I would like to see support from the council to work with staff to get a workshop scheduled for our employees.
I think our HR director, we have a pending, we're looking at April. She's already working with a consultant to work out a date.
Where is she?
I'm sorry, Miss.
Oh, okay.
In March
Is it March?
Good, yeah.
Thank you.
Our broker has contacted us, sorry, for our first meeting of the year. So we can use some of that information to provide to the rest of the staff, which our health insurance committee will be part of the March 22nd meeting.
Okay, so the March 22nd meeting is
with our broker coming from
with the broker and the committee, but then from there we'll have a second meeting
open to all city staff.
Open to all city staff, spouses.
Have we selected a date? Because I think we need to make sure that we get plenty of notice for.
We were planning in sometime in April. We haven't got a specific date.
Perfect. Okay.
Yes, the committee will be working on actually the date.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay. And the workshop is being planned. Had you considered Mrs. Walker's suggestion for evening? What would you constitute eating? 4 o'clock?
Oh, no, I was
5
thinking
o'clock, 6 o'clock?
5:30, 6 o'clock.
We can do it whatever. We can do some during the day. We can do some in the evening for the spouses.
I think we just offer one or the other. Like maybe Tuesday at noon and Thursday at 5:30 or something like that.
Yeah,
you
we can do that.
make it to one or the other.
That's not a problem. We can do both.
Okay.
And since we're going to offer this opportunity for communication with employees, is there anything else? I mean, we'll leave it to staff, but is there anything else that we could take the opportunity to share with employees at that time? Doesn't have to be just health insurance, but if Mr. Duran, if there's a new program or something that you want to share with staff.
But since this is going to be a continuing hot button issue.
Absolutely.
Through 2016, this would be, I think, a very strong focus on health care and these options because we already have an idea what's going to happen in the next 3-4 years.
Okay.
I think there's going to be a very large focus and a lot of information for folks to
absorb. Yep. Okay. Very good.
Okay. What is the first date? The 22nd?
That's for the Health Insurance Committee.
Okay.
Right, March 22nd.
And then a date will be set for the particular workshops.
Right, and most likely in April.
In April. Okay.
Yes.
Ms. Walker, you have anything else you would like to?
Those are my key issues at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Silva.
Nothing.
Mr. Jackson.
Just real quickly, I think Sharice made a comment about the Act of Valor movie that was filmed here in El Centro. I sit on the film commission along with Mr. Solomon and was able to see that premiere. If you haven't seen it, it's a good movie, and more importantly, we have a lot of movies filmed in Imperial Valley that you can actually recognize and see a lot of El Centro and the old ice plant, the milk plant, the train tracks, the whole thing. So it's right out here on Commercial Avenue. So it's neat to see on the big screen that our town's right there. So if you haven't taken the opportunity, I suggest it.
Mr. Solomon. We all wanted to announce that there are several things coming up, all on the same date. It seems that we can't get beyond the date. March 15th, there will be a tree planting ceremony here, hosted by the El Centro Senior Club. They will be honoring the late Miss Diana Newton with a tree, as well as Mr. Gillis with a tree. Unfortunately, March 15th is the same day for the groundbreaking over on North 8th. The tree planting starts at 10:30. The groundbreaking is at 10. I recognize that that may pose a problem in scheduling conflict, but if anyone can come to the tree planting, they would be very happy to have you join them. We've already.
I'm planning to be here.
Okay. We've already announced the good news from the LTA last night with the $300,000 that will be coming into the city coffers. Is there anything else that we need to add? If nothing else, then we will go back into closed session, and we thank all of you for being with us today.
I
I'm sorry.
One last item, I apologize. I brought this letter from Ann Mallory, the ICOE.
Oh, yes.
And talking about contacting Mr. Preciado for formation of the Oversight Board. At the next meeting, could we get some updates with regard to these RDA Oversight Boards?
Yes, and I don't think we're making those, we're not making those
No, we're
appointments.
not.
Yeah, we're not. So I guess she just wanted us to know that's who her.
Right.
The
Yeah.
letter's a little strangely written because actually that letter should go to to the county controller.
It should go to the county, right.
He has a copy of it, but it looks like it's coming, but
It's
we will need to appoint.
it's very convoluted.
It is confusing.
So.
But it's a confusing law.
Perhaps at the next city council meeting, we could get an update on those successor agency oversight committee thingies. They're all over the map.
Okay, anything else?
I think Jeff lost this.
Hearing none. We want to thank each of you for coming. Mr. Green, it's good to see you. We look forward to seeing you on Thursday. For everyone else, we thank you for coming, and we're going to go back into closed session.